So in order to do that, in order to talk to you about how I chose my career path, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on how I got to where I was. Obviously, as you heard, I graduated from Branson High School, and I actually went to high school in this building. So it's come a long way since I was here, and I walked down the halls last night, and it looks a lot smaller than it seemed like it looked back then. So anyway, glad to be back here. And when I left, when I was probably your age, I was trying to figure out, as we all do, what are we going to all do with our lives. And I think I had probably decided by about 7th and 8th grade that I wanted to be a doctor. So I went to medical school at UMKC after my experience here at Branson High School. And I was there for 2 years. And the first year was all good, and I loved it, and I was making straight A's and thought everything was great. And in my second year, I spent a lot more time in the hospital, and I found out I had a little bit of a problem with fainting. So, and I tried to work through it the best I could. I talked to teachers about it and medical professionals about it, and quite honestly, I just couldn't get past it. So I found myself, where all the goals and objectives that I had set for myself prior to that were kind of, up in the air. It's like, what do I do with myself now? This is what I'd always wanted to do. So I actually ended up coming back to Missouri State University and deciding to major in business. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do in business, but I thought, well, if I just take some different classes in different areas, maybe I'll figure that out. And so being that I've always been somewhat career focused, I was, I'm not sure we had Google then. I don't think so. But I'm looking for career options that in business careers that, had really good jobs. So I chose accounting as my background to focus on for my degree, and a minor in internal audit. And following college, I went to work as an internal auditor for Leggett & Platt, a Fortune 500 company that has locations all over the world. They're still very large and continue to grow. But at that time, I really fell in love with travel. And the reason I'm telling you all this is, as an internal auditor going to visit all their locations, I spent 3 out of the 4 weeks for 3 years traveling. So it was international travel, U.S. travel, but I really started getting into the different airlines, the different aircraft configurations, the different hub cities, what airline flew to what city. And I thought, I love to travel, and I thought this would be a great career someday to get somehow involved in the aviation industry. Well, after leaving Leggett & Platt, I ended up coming back here because I met a guy, and I've been with him for 5 years, and he's now my husband, and so definitely I'm glad that I did that. But I spent about 9 years after that managing a resort property, and got really involved in tourism and the restaurant and hotel business. And while I love that, there became an opportunity that here in Branson, where they were building the first privately owned and operated airport in the United States. And it sounded like such an exciting project, and I kind of followed the first couple years of them getting their bonds together, getting the project going, and in 2008 I applied for a position in accounting, actually, as a CFO of the Branson Airport. So I ended up going to work there in 2008, and they reopened the airport in May of 2009. So it definitely has been challenging and exciting, and it's coming up. I can't believe it's almost been 10 years that I've been there. But when I first started out, I did get in because of my background in accounting. I got into a position there, but that's really not what I wanted to do going forward. So I ended up moving into, when someone left, into the position I'm in now as marketing and air service development. So that being said, I don't know that I'm really following this closely. But I think the most important thing is, I think you may set goals for yourself, and you don't necessarily go the path that you think you're going to, and that's okay. And I think that a lot of times we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we have to achieve this, or we have to do that, or we have this career path and we've got to achieve it. And I think I'm a really good example of thinking I knew really what I wanted to do, and then finding that it was something totally different, and then finding that that was my happiness, and that I love the job and the career that I'm in. So good things about aviation careers are that they have excellent career growth opportunities. There's so many different types of jobs in aviation that people just don't think about. I think, You know, when you first think about aviation, you just think, well, I don't want to be a pilot, or I do want to be a pilot, or whatever. But there's also a whole other industry there with lots and lots and lots of jobs. First touching on some more hands-on type careers in aviation, like I said, pilots, you have international pilots, regional pilots. And then there's a whole big world out there of corporate aviation, where you fly on private planes to get to your destination. Helicopters, there are flight instructors. And one of the really exciting things, I think, is the air show and aerobatic pilots. There's air shows all over the country every year. We hosted an awesome one the first year that we opened the airport, and that was an exciting thing to be a part of. Maybe one of the more dangerous things that you can do in aviation, but still very exciting. And then aircraft scheduling for commercial and private. And basically that boils down to there's somebody that works for, say, example, Delta, that's sitting in a room somewhere, and they're deciding what times every single one of those planes leaves and comes, and there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of planes in the air at one time, and they strategically figure all that out. That's another type of career in aviation. And then maintenance. You have mechanics that just work on airplanes, just like they do on cars or anything else. We have maintenance managers that work on airport vehicles. Say, for example, if the fire truck stops working, or one of our regular trucks stops working, they handle that. And then there's a whole other area of military that is just a massive part of aviation, and that is definitely prevalent in the maintenance side and in the air traffic control side. And I think one of the most strategic, most challenging roles as far as careers would be working in a control tower, and we specifically have a contract control tower. It's not an FAA control tower managed by Midwest ATC. And it's, you know, you're up there trying to figure out who's coming and going, and if you don't do it right, planes are going to crash. And so that's a definitely more stressful probably career in aviation. And then there's a whole level of aviation careers in business, from the director to what I do to airport administration, getting to air service development, which is kind of my focus in marketing. Basically, any Google ads, any public relations, press releases, TV, radio, your traditional type marketing falls under kind of what I do. And then air service development, I spend about, well, I would say about 5 times a year I send all the major airlines in the United States a package with an update on the statistics in the industry and in the Branson market currently. And then I attend conferences throughout the year where we sit down and we meet with the individuals that operate the airlines face to face and try to convince them to come to the Branson community. Recently, I just got back from an international conference, and it was in Quito, Ecuador. And it's just, for me, that side of my job, getting to travel and go to unique places like that is very exciting. And then we have our operations staff with ticket agents, your flight attendants, your ramp staff that's loading all the bags on the plane, and then our parking lot and gift shop. And so there's a lot of different opportunities to do a lot of different things. So why choose a career in aviation? In a report published by the ATAG, Air Transport Action Group, 62.7 million jobs are supported worldwide in aviation and related tourism. Out of that, 9.9 million jobs work directly in the aviation industry, and that is 9.9 million employees, a whole host of different responsibilities, and a wide variety of skills, all working together to keep all those planes in the sky. So, the perks of aviation. Obviously, I said one of my favorite things is the travel, the getting to see the world, meeting new people. In aviation, every day is different because guess what? Every plane's not on time. You know, flights cancel. You guys have probably all been in a situation where you've been sitting in an airport because a flight was delayed. So the environment is constantly changing. There's always things happening. I think it helps you to definitely understand cultural differences, especially with the travel side and getting to meet new people. There's so many different types of job opportunities. I feel like you really get to gain respect for the world, And you know, it's just, to me, it's just super exciting, and it has become quite addictive. And I'm glad that in a weird sort of way, back in the day when I was working for Leg and Platt and doing all this traveling, I managed to figure out how to get myself back into this industry that I love. So, my favorite quote ever, if traveling were free, you'd never see me again.